During the 1970s, Led Zeppelin was named the most innovative and the most influential band of the decade. After releasing one of rock history's most famous songs, Stairway to Heaven, Robert Plant and Jimmy Page became two of the most popular artists of their time. The band led to the uprising of the term heavy metal after being recognized by their blues-based sound. The pet rock fad had become the ultimate exception in marketing. In April 1975, Gary Dahl jokingly came across the idea of keeping a pet rock as a pet to avoid the work needed to take care of a living pet. He wrote a manual on how to teach your pet rock to stay, sit, roll over, play dead, and to be house trained. Within a few months, Dahl had sold over 1 million pet rocks at $3.95 each. From the 1960s to the 1970s, the crime rate in the country had increased 30%. In 1975, there had been 20,000 murders. One of the era's most famous murderers, Charles Manson, also known as Helter Skelter, created a group of followers known as the Family that had targeted violence aimed to create a race-based revolution. In 1979, Islamic militants got rid of Iran's leader, Mohammad Pahlavi, and replaced him with their spiritual leader, Ayatollah Khomeini. The overthrow of power caused uprising conflicts that disrupted the production of oil between the U.S. and the Middle East. Later that year, Iranian militants had stormed the U.S. Embassy in Tehran and took 52 hostages who they held captive for 444 days. In 1974, former President Richard Nixon was the only U.S. president forced to resign from office. This was due to the involvement in his cover-up regarding the Watergate scandal. Several members of Nixon's administration were fired due to conspiracy, burglary, and wiretapping charges. The TV show All in the Family was first aired on January of 1971. After being one of the most popular shows of the decade, it had also immediately changed the face of national television. This TV show had portrayed the struggle and the everyday lifestyle of growing up with one big family through a sense of good humor. The Clash were an English punk rock band formed in 1976. They were most noted for their hit songs Rock the Casbah, Should I Stay or Should I Go, and London Calling. The band had used familiar sounds of reggae and funk throughout their music. Later on, the band had split apart in 1986. In the mid-70s, members of the National Organization of Women had marched down the boardwalk in Atlantic City to help fight for women's rights. The NOW was formed and made passing the Equal Rights Amendment its highest priority. Also in the 1970s, feminists had worked to improve conditions for women, such as more favorable divorce agreements and federally funded childcare. In 1972, former U.S. President Richard Nixon had successfully ended all U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War. After one of the worst political scandals to ever hit the White House, President Nixon's presidency had been ended with resignation. As you can see, President Nixon had flashed his V for Victory sign at the moment of disgrace. In the late 1970s, at the 3 Mile Island in Pennsylvania, it was a nuclear power plant that searched for an alternative source of energy other than using fossil fuels. It had been said to be recorded as one of the most fearful accidents to ever occur when half the reactor's core had melted, almost causing a nuclear catastrophe. Sitcom satire is a type of comedy portrayed in a comedy-themed TV show. Along with All in the Family, Sanford and Son was debuted a year later and was another great example of a TV hit during the 1970s. It was a show about a father and a son who constantly argued about money schemes. Red Fox played a father and Desmond Wilson played his grown-up son. On October 11th, 1975, Saturday Night Live had originally debuted. This star-studded cast included Chevy Chase, John Belushi, Jane Curtin, Garrett Morris, and Lorraine Newman. It was satire at its best, combining sexual humor with a variety of other acting techniques. It became one of the most recognizable comedy shows ever created.